Greetings everyone, I am S. Venkatesh. In this video we are going to see about Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming. First, we can see about the overview of Object-Oriented Programming. Object-Oriented Programming is the best programming paradigms. Here we are going to give more importance for objects. Object means it encloses both data and functions. Class is the template to create the objects. Previously, they gave more importance to implementation, that is logic or functions. But in object-oriented programming, we are going to give more importance to objects. For example, customer is one object, manager is another object, assistant manager is another object. Like that, we are going to give more importance for objects. The advantage of using object-oriented programming is reusability. Suppose last year we were creating a software for library with 10 modules. This year the same software can be used. If you want, you can remove 2 modules and you can add 3 more modules. So this is reusability. Without object-oriented programming, this is not possible. If there is no object-oriented programming, means you have to create the entire software from the scratch. So apart from this, object-oriented programming helps you to hide your data so that others cannot misuse or delete your data. Then you can reduce the number of coding lines by using inheritance. So parent class features can be inherited by the child classes. So like this, you have so many advantages. That's why many people, especially programmers, are preferring object-oriented programming. So languages like Java, C++, Python and Ruby are object-oriented programming languages. For large projects, using object-oriented programming paradigm is the best one. We will see the real-time applications of object-oriented programming. The first one is we can use object-oriented programming paradigm for creating mobile applications. Here Java programming language plays a vital role. So whatever apps you are using in your mobile can be created using OOPS languages. Next one is embedded applications. For example, in televisions, washing machines or Blu-ray displayers, you can use applications created using object-oriented programming languages, especially Java. You can also use C++ to create such embedded applications. Next one is for enterprise applications. Object-oriented programming languages play a major role. So for a company, there will be so many processes. So all these processes can be done using the embedded application software created using OOPS languages. Next one is object-oriented databases. So normally database stores integers, float, character, like that. But here in object-oriented databases, we are going to store the objects. Similarly, you have object-oriented client server. So here you are giving importance for objects compared to the normal client server applications. Next one is for office automation systems. You can create applications using OOPS languages. Then for advanced operations like AI applications or AI research, you can make use of OOPS languages, especially Python. Then for advanced operations like neural network and parallel programming applications, you can make use of object-oriented programming languages to make analysis of time variant systems. So like this, for large projects, whether it may be application oriented or even very extra real-time application oriented or real world problems, you can make use of object oriented programming languages. Next one is, we are going to compare object oriented programming with procedure oriented programming. So procedural oriented programming is a paradigm which was used previously, but there you had some disadvantages. That's why they started going for object oriented programming. In procedural oriented programming, for example, C language, BASIC and Fortran, you are going to give more importance to functions, that is logic, that is behavior. But in object oriented programming, you are going to give more importance to objects. For example, if you take a bank system, there in procedural oriented programming, we will be giving importance to functions like transfer, amount deposit, amount withdrawal, like that. But the same software, when it is done using object oriented programming language, there you will be giving more importance to objects, that is manager, custom managers, customer, money, like that. So this is the major difference. So we are going to apply object oriented features in object oriented programming. For example, unlike procedural oriented programming, in object oriented programming you can make use of parent classes and subclasses. Then you can make use of data hiding. Then you can cover, that is wrap up both data and functions as a single unit. Objects can communicate with each other, like that. So many new features are available in object oriented programming compared to procedural oriented programming. So for small programs, small projects, you can go for procedural oriented programming. But when you take large projects or large applications, it's better to use object oriented programming, because suppose you want to reuse the whole project, then there will be more complications when you create using procedural oriented languages. But when you use object oriented programming language, means making the changes will become more easier. Next one is, we are going to see the features of object oriented programming. So there are many special new features in object oriented programming compared to the previous programming paradigms. The first one is class. So class is the template for creating objects. Object is the instance of a class. For example, animal is the class. Lion, tiger, sheep and deer, these are all objects. So the animal class contains common features and objects are instances of the class. So when you say object oriented programming, the main thing is object. Next one is abstraction. Abstraction means here we are not going to give the complete details, we are going to give only the important necessary details only. So this will avoid confusion. For example, if you want to know printf means, you need not know how it works, you need not know how to create the printf statement. If you know what is done by the printf statement, that is enough. So this is called abstraction. Next one is encapsulation. Encapsulation means you are going to wrap up both the data and functions together into a single unit. So this helps to achieve data hiding. So data is hidden from other modules. Only if proper permission is given, one module can access the data and functions of another module. Next one is inheritance. So just like the child will inherit the properties of parent, here there will be parent class. The attributes of parent class will be inherited by the child classes. So this avoids duplication of coding. Similarly, there can be grant child class also. Next one is dynamic binding. Dynamic binding means you are going to link the function call with the actual function code in runtime. Next one is message passing. So objects will interact with each other and pass messages. Next feature is polymorphism. So polymorphism means having many forms. For example, you can have only one function. That function can be used to find out area of different shapes. Now we will see the summary. In this video we saw about introduction to object-oriented programming. Initially we saw the overview of object-oriented programming, what is meant by object-oriented programming, why do you want to use it compared to previous programming paradigms. Then we saw about the real-time applications of object-oriented programming like mobile applications, object-oriented client-server applications, object-oriented databases, neural networks, parallel programming, then artificial intelligence, then office automation, and so on. Then we compared the procedural oriented programming with object oriented programming. In procedural oriented programming, we gave importance to logic or functions, but in object oriented programming, we give importance to objects. For procedural oriented programming, examples are C, Pascal, and Fortran. For object-oriented programming, examples are C++, Java, Python, and Ruby. Then we saw what are the features available in object-oriented programming. For example, abstraction, classes, objects, inheritance, encapsulation, data hiding, then dynamic binding, and message passing. So, hope you got an overview of object-oriented programming. Thanks for watching.